welcome to part 2 of Yankidi. This is a really fun part because I love looking at how the different patterns fit together to make a certain song. Of course, you're always going to find that there are many options to different patterns that fit together, but there's certain ones that are traditional that you'll get to know. So as I said earlier, this is part 2 of Yankidi. So the part that I wrote in the part 1 of this tutorial was for the Junjun. This is the main Yankidi rhythm. Now we're going to write down the part for the djembe. Oh, why don't we have you play a few bars of it, and I'm going to count with it. Okay, remember that we're in 4/4 here. Go ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. So you've probably already noticed that this particular pattern actually is a 2-measure pattern. All of the other patterns we've looked at so far have been a 1-measure pattern that repeats over and over again. But this one is actually for a duration of 2 4-bar measures, and those 2 measures repeat. So you notice I took the same rhythm that we worked in part 1 for the Junjun, and I wrote it out twice. So here's the first measure, and here's the same rhythm again for the second measure. This way you can see how the beats and the patterns for the Junjun and the djembe align. Notice I'm also using a different color to show the djembe pattern. So the first beat of this, and please do pay attention to the beats that I've written here in blue. Notice I've written them, in a triplet subdivision. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. So your first beat is going to be a quarter note that lasts for the duration of 1 and a. Okay, and then your second beat . You know what? I'm actually going to write this the other direction. So do you remember that sometimes the notes can be written down at the bottom of the staff this way, and they can also be written at the top of the staff? Well, you notice that the djembe has a higher pitch, and so we're going to write it at the top of the staff to represent this. So here's our same quarter note value. Still the same filled-in note head with the stem, so it's still a quarter note. Okay, so that's our first beat. Our second beat actually goes 2 and a. And I'm trying my best to line this up here. Again, this is a triplet subdivision. So you're hearing 1 and a, 2 and a. And then after that, you're going to hear 2 beats of rest. So remember, the rest looks like this, the quarter note rest. It looks kind of like a lightning bolt, and that means you're going to have a full beat of silence. So that you get 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. Now here's your next measure. One is again a quarter note value. Oh, I'm writing on the bottom again. It's right on the top. 2 is also going to be a quarter note value. 1 and a, 2 and a. And then 3, again, you get your triplet value. And again, to explain this different way of looking at the triplet, compare up here to where we have the 3 eighth notes that fit together to make one beat. Well, you don't always have to hear one and a. You can hear one and a. There's still a subdivision underneath of 3, but you're only hearing us play on the first and third notes of that same triplet subdivision. Okay, so going back here. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 is again going to be a rest. And there's our repeat sign. Okay, so with that being said, let's play it and let's count it together. So we're going to do this slowly. I'm going to count the triplet subdivision with you. Ready? 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Okay, so now you've also noticed probably at the beginning of this part that Onoche is doing something a little decorative on the djembe part. He doesn't always play the hands together like so. Sometimes he slightly does them separately. This is an ornament that we call an appoggiatura. So we don't necessarily have to write this out, but if you want to, it looks like a very small note that comes right before the quarter note value. So most of the time you're going to see it like that. Most of the time he's putting them on our quarter note subdivisions. Okay. Onoche, would you mind playing that for us again with the ornaments? Thank you very much. So actually the way he played it just now was without this first ornament. So this one he was playing with both hands together, and then here he separated them slightly so that you're hearing a small note value coming in just before the beat. So again, that's called an appoggiatura. Okay, so now we're going to play these two parts together. We're going to play the junjun part and the djembe part. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And please click on our next part of the tutorial, Yankidi Part 3, in order to learn about how Yankidi goes from this slow sort of courtship, graceful dance into the more lively, upbeat, committal part of the dance. Stay tuned.